I'm Matt Braunger. This might help.
I am not a doctor.
This might help.
I'm not a professional.
Let's have fun. This honestly is a good time.
Honestly, I got no idea what I'm doing. What's going on, Corey?
I'm Matt Braunger. This might help. The podcast. Hey, welcome to This Might Help with Matt Braunger, the only advice podcast that really matters, but also isn't clinically right. So if you're here for actual help, you probably want to go talk to Dr. Drew or somebody else. But if you want to have a little fun and get some help from me and my dumb friends, you're in the right place. Speaking of which, what an awful intro. But I have a comedian here who I'm a huge fan of, and someone who some of you folks might have listened to last week's episode with Corey Ryan Forrester. And one thing we talked about is how he pivoted from doing stand-up all the time to doing online stuff. Now, my guest has done some of the funniest stuff online that I've seen this year, and is also a great comedian in his own right. Brent Terhune, how are you, man?
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Did I say the last name right?
Yes, sir. My own family says Terhune and Terhune, and even a Tarhune occasionally. So I say Terhune. Nobody cares, by the way. So
listen, as one of the club of people whose name does not look complicated, but everyone says it differently, I think you and we've got that in common for sure.
Yeah.
So how have you been right now? Like how are you feeling these days?
Okay, it's the same with, I'm sure you talked about it with Corey Ryan Forrester, but it's one of those where I'm used to being on the road. That's what I do. And then, you have to pivot. So, but it's been nice to be home. I don't know how you feel. If you're like, that's always like itching to be on the road. But like either I'm on the road or I don't leave my house. One of the two. And it's been nice to not leave the house.
Yeah, I've definitely reached that point a little while back where I'm just like, if I'm not going on the road, it's like I don't really want to go anywhere. If I have a really close friend and they have a birthday or something, and this is before everything this year happened with the virus, I would be like, all right, okay, let's go. But yeah, it's I'm the same as you. I feel awful about what's going on, but at the same time, I'm not hating being home all the time.
Yeah, I've said it on different podcasts and stuff, but I'm like, besides the people dying, I don't mind being home. You know what I'm saying? Like,
of course.
It's weird to say that, but it's like you got to I guess you have to make the best of your particular situation.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to kind of take care of ourselves, and it's a rough year, not only with the virus situation going on, and then also with an administration that really couldn't give a fuck how many people die. There's also that. So like that it's one of those things we lose sight of. It doesn't matter, what side of the aisle or how you look at it from above, below, within, or without. It's like they did nothing. Nothing, and didn't even have the decency to be like, wow, we feel terrible that this is going on. It's just like, hey, it was kind of a, hey, what are you going to do thing? So it just, I've felt like definite survivor's remorse where I'm just like, I'm doing okay. And that makes me feel fucking horrible when I see all these people that are going into these jobs that they can't live without because they have a family or whatever, and getting sick and maybe dying. It just makes me feel terrible, man.
Yeah, and then you and I are playing. We do this now. We do podcasts, and it's like, it's like that. If I don't do this, the terrorist win type attitude. But it's also like, what are you going to do if you don't do the thing that you are, or you're supposed to? So
yeah, and even just a couple moments ago where I was like, kind of, just dipping my toe into the darkness or being like that. Even that, I start feeling guilty where I'm just like, this isn't your job. Someone's listening to this in their car. They're supposed to be entertained. Fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully you and I have got, the gift of gab, and we're pretty funny people and all that jazz, and we're using our gifts. But, gosh, it is that thing. I mean, before we started rolling, you were talking about how you just played one of my favorite clubs, the Comedy Attic, and you're on stage with a mask on, which, God bless, but that had to be weird, right?
Yeah, it was weird because then, whatever, you lose half your face. So, sometimes if I say something that it's extremely dark, if you can't see the smile, then you're like, oh, wow. Like
Yeah.
you just said something. And it's weird to be, like I was telling you, it's weird to be on stage because I don't want to be the reason that this group has gathered. But also, if places aren't doing shows, then they're going to close. It's that
Yeah.
because like you said, the administration has not done anything. They've
Yeah.
not even said put the cloth on your face,
Yeah.
like
No.
the
Yeah.
bare
God.
minimum.
Not even put the cloth on your face. I mean, when you said they haven't done anything, I was thinking, they haven't even they've given people $1,200 period for the
Mhm.
year, $1,200, and
Mhm.
then and then there's no. What I thought you were going to say is that that aid package to help small businesses,
Mhm.
specifically performance spaces and restaurants, and of course they didn't do that.
Yeah.
If they're not just giving money to people for survive, they're not going to save an art space. That's the
Yeah.
furthest down in the totem pole ever. But yeah, to your point exactly. And I feel the same way. It's like I want to do everything I can selfishly so these
Mhm.
places will still be around when I'm there. But when you funny when you mentioned it's they don't see half your face. There's a
Mhm.
guy at a coffee shop right near me who was saying, like, when this whole thing kind of started, he was like, yeah, had like a distance hang with some friends, and I hadn't done that yet. And I was like, oh, how
Mhm.
was it? And he's like, pretty much sucked because we're all in masks outside in a circle and everyone's got beers. And you lift your mask to sip, but then other than that, you're talking, and I can't tell if people are fucking kidding or not. It was horrible. Everyone had
Yeah.
this weird waiting, and they'd go, "Oh, you're kidding!" Like it's almost like
Mhm.
they were aliens relearning what sense of humor is.
Yeah, well, and it's for a while, you're not around anybody. Like I said on stage this past, like I've not really been. I've been around my wife, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I've given myself 3 haircuts. Like
Wow.
where, thankfully, I don't have a lot of hair to begin with, but it was just which I've never like just completely shaved my head because I've always had to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But forever was like, I got nowhere else to be.
Yeah.
But that kind of weird behavior to not really talk to anybody. Now I'm shaving my head. Now I got all, I'm doing all this stuff that you would think a crazy person would do.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've all kind of had to adapt to this weird thing and kind of find our whatever our caveman like abilities might
Mm-hmm.
be for that sort of thing. But the silver lining is it does throw into sharp relief what's important to you. It's
Yeah.
obviously, your wife, and do you have any kids?
No kids, but we have cats, which is
There you go.
not close to kids. But
You're still keeping something alive. But it's
yes.
kind
Yeah.
of like that was a big thing for me. It was like, yeah, my wife, my kid, like that's not that that's mind blowing and anything other than the plot of a fucking Disney movie or like one of those low budget Christian features they put out every year that always has the same message.
Yeah.
There's more than football. Um, but it is that thing that just kind of made me kind of go focus in on that more. I always
Mm-hmm.
knew that was most important, but just to kind of focus in on that, like, so that kind of was my silver lining. Also on how important comedy is to me,
Oh
where
yeah.
for years I kind of took it for granted. I'd go on the road. I really liked it, but it was just this thing of sometimes I felt like a hamster on a wheel, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not, because you're always writing new stuff or trying to at least.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it'd be one thing if you were doing a one man version of like Les Mis
Mm-hmm.
for 20 years. That would break me, but it's not, because we're always, the great thing is we're goofballs. So
Yeah, especially in comedy, you could do a few weeks and you feel beaten down or whatever, but then you have that new bit
yeah,
that you say, and that like you could do the rest of the show on autopilot, which is not good,
right,
but
right,
but then you get to the new bit and you're like, oh, now
yeah.
now I can make you laugh with a new thought.
That is the one thing that were you like me that during this it's just like I gotta find the things to kind of be entertained by our president,
Mm-hmm.
because like when he would do rallies and they'd show clips, I'm sure you were like me where you watched it from the perspective of a comedian,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean I've done Zoom shows, and they're not that fun and they suck, but one bit I would just toss off that made everyone laugh was like, I miss doing stand-up. The president misses doing stand-up. And that would always get a laugh because then people go, oh my God, he is. He is.
Yeah.
Literally, that's why he does those rallies, for the same juice that we would crave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you are touring with your friends and your friends up and they're killing, you're like, hot crowd. This is great. Like that's all he ever wants.
He's half comedian, half pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Because then he says these things that are so outrageous that you're like, this is wrestling now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anytime he gets, I talked about this with Corey too, about like, he's a heel who wants to be the good guy, but he's a heel and he doesn't even have the decency to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm evil. Like a good heel would.
Yeah,
you know?
well, even like in movies, a good villain doesn't think he's wrong.
That's true.
You know,
that's a good point.
Like he thinks he's doing the right thing, but then like if you just step back and you're like, I don't think that was the right thing to do at all.
The amount of times I saw him, like a clip from one of his rallies. It's not like I watched his rallies. I wasn't that entertained by it, but like when I see a clip from it where he'd be killing with the stuff they want to hear. And then he would start complaining about how he's been treated and he would just lose them. He'd lose. They're all just staring at him, just waiting. And it's the same thing when you're, doing stand up and you're like, God, I'm doing so good. Let me try this thing on that only I like. And then it just eats a dick. And you're like, yeah, all right. But he would keep pounding because his ego won't let him let it go. He's like that comic who just does a joke that's just not landing, and they start getting madder and madder and madder at the audience.
He's like the guy that chases the closer. Like if you've ever worked with a guy that, and his bits are not 2 minutes a piece. It's like, oh, if you didn't like this 10 minutes, then I'm going to have to start this other 10 minutes. And you're like, oh, come on.
I gotta kill. I gotta get a great dismount. So I just have to. All right. Let me start up another bit.
Please don't. Please. Just say that we're happy you're here, but we would like to leave now.
This show has been going for 2.5 hours with all the comedians. We've had a lovely evening. You're not ending that well, but we're still going to clap just as loud. Just because you're saying good night. That's all.
I did a show one time with a comic who's famous for bumping people. I won't say his name, but it was like I was the host, and then there was another comic, and then the feature, and then the headliner.
Can I ask how long ago this was?
4 years ago, maybe.
Okay, because it's like I think every couple of years there's that person, and it's like there's a ton of them. There's no one that I'm like, it's this person for sure. It's this person but like just for me, I'm sure whoever's listening is like, fucking say it. But
say it.
No, I don't care.
That's for the Patreon listeners. I don't know if you have a Patreon, but I was supposed to host, and then he ends up bringing his own people. So I'm doing like 5. Just there, the club's like, okay, you can be on the show. Then the other 2 comics go on, and then I bring up the headliner. And then every show I would just leave for like an hour. And the club that I was working, there was literally shared a wall with the rock club. So I went next door and watched a full concert of a headlining act of a concert. And then I came back and he still had 30 minutes left. And you could just see people walking, and they were like happy to be there, but they're also like, man, I like this guy, but not for that long. Like, no, how long do you want your favorite movie to go on?
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, I think Jerry Seinfeld nailed it when he was just like, he's like, I have, 3 minutes where, like before they start going, come on, man, do something funny. Like your fame, the love people feel for you does not get you very far ever. You have to perform, you have to perform well every time. But like, yeah, that's it. I mean, I knew a guy. I remember playing a club in Orlando, and they told me about this comic who I won't name either, but he would go for so long that the second show would start like an hour and a half late, and then those people would be, and then he would go so long that by the time he got on stage, it was almost like like one or two,
Oh,
and cops would come and take everyone's drinks because of liquor laws. They'd
like
take
it's
them.
prohibition. Yeah.
Drinks that were paid for. Prohibition would kick in at like 1 or 1:30, and it's like you can stay, but you don't get to drink anymore. And
Well,
people
then
are like,
yeah.
they're like, I've been in line for 2 hours for no reason. I was standing up for no, and it was like, and I asked about that guy at a couple other clubs. They're like, yeah, he does that here too. And I was just like, I don't get it.
Did that comic require a new pair of shoes every set?
I think he did.
Okay. That you and I are not talking about the same comic, but I love to hear whether it's comics or not, the outrageous demands of certain artists. And I think that guy was like, yeah, I got to have a new pair of Jordans or Air Force Ones before I walk on stage.
Yep. I think that was one of his quirks for sure. And he's a popular guy, so
yeah, I mean, you make enough money, you can ask for whatever you want.
Yeah, the shoes thing. If I was a club owner, I'd be like, I got your shoes ready. I got shoes for the early show and the late show. We sold through the roof. Your audience parties, they drink a lot. Great. But it'd be that thing of like, I feel so bad for my patrons.
yeah. To make the people that are here to see me on purpose wait.
Yes.
Or just lose the rest of their evening, essentially.
Well, and also full circle, who was leaving people on the tarmac. Buses are coming. Yeah. Thanks for coming. They're going to bus you back to the parking lot, and then never, like he'd fly away on Air Force One. Oops, I gave away the name of that comic inadvertently. But then they're just stuck there, and it was like I couldn't even, dredge up the Schadenfreude to be like, ha ha, MAGA idiots. I was like, oh man, they're out there freezing.
And the
cornfield.
And the people will be like, he's great still, and you're like, come on, man, like.
So I was like, isn't there one person that's like, hey, you know what? Fuck him. Nope,
yeah,
probably not.
Well, we deserve this. He's right.
Yeah.
Like,
well, your video about your guy who lost his boat that was so funny. If you're listening to this now, folks, you got to check out Brent's video after all those sailing vessels and
on Lake Travis and like Austin area.
Yeah, Lake Travis. Yeah, they capsized and sank. Waving Trump flags and stuff. And you did a video as a guy who'd lost his boat.
Yeah.
And the SS Magaritaville.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones you just listen to. You're like, that's so good. Fuck this guy. Fuck you, Brent.
Well, thank you.
No, you know what I mean? No, it is when someone says something that's just like, you're like, oh, that's good, man.
That was one of those where like sometimes, if you're not familiar with what I do, it's, it's satire. Like if you see a guy rant in a truck, it's that style.
Right.
But, obviously I don't mean it. And that's one where sometimes I could work for days on a certain video if I know the topic is coming. But that's one I saw. And like with these types of videos, you got to hit it quick.
Yeah.
As because there's another thing that happens tomorrow, and it might even wait till tomorrow,
Yeah.
So I put that together, and I was, sometimes you're really confident about a video. You're like, man, this one's going to be the one. And for that one, I was like, okay, this is fine. And then it went, it was super popular, which was great, but it was never anything I was like, oh, this is going to be good,
Yeah. It's not, you never know what's going to hit and it's just, which is kind of why you got to stay malleable as an artist. It's the same thing as when we're doing stand up. You'll have this thing that's like, oh, this is gonna crush. I know this line and nothing, and then you have some like throwaway line and it'll kill, and you're like,
it's that weird thing where I've done enough like contest shows where you're like, this is my set, I'm gonna stick to my guns, and then you go up and you're like, I'm too tight and they can tell, or then you're like, maybe I should pivot and do something else, but then you're like, no, I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
But that's like, you never know what to actually do in the moment. I guess you just got to feel it, but
you do. But that's why I hate contest shows as a rule. On the one hand, it's like, yeah, I get it. And it does. I can't deny more people will come probably because it's a contest. Who's the greatest? But it's like
at the subjective art.
Exactly. And but it's just because you get so in your head about and you do a set you've done to death, like
Mhm.
a late night set, and you're like, I hate these jokes so fucking much. I when I moved to LA, I got here first, and then Kyle Kinane came a month after me, and we had a place together. And I remember he was doing this. He was in some contest where it was like down to 10 guys or something, and
Mhm.
it was like at the oh fuck, what's that stupid club on the Sunset Strip? It's not a comedy club. It's a rock club, but not like a
Oh,
fun one like the Rainbow Room
that's
or
the one I know.
or the Whiskey. I
Yeah.
forget what it is, but you know, it's kind of got that air of douche, not like of rock and roll. Just like, oh, this
Mhm.
is a coked out dance club. For some reason,
Yeah.
they had it in there, and I know Chris Fairbanks was one of the other people
Mhm.
on the list, and Kyle did that thing of. I think Jimmy Kimmel sponsored it or something, but Kyle did that thing. That was it. I think the prize was you get to go on Kimmel or something.
Mhm.
So Kyle just decided to open with something he just thought of, and it did not land. And so he's just
Mhm.
like digging himself out the rest of his
Oh, yeah.
10 minutes. And but he was just like so mad at himself that he felt like he fucked it all up. And, he didn't win, but then he got himself in and out on the way home to like, soothe his pain and salve his wounds. And he got home and he walks in the door and the bottom had greased out so much it just went like all his food went all over the carpet. So it's like this, fuck, you
One
know.
thing after another. Yeah.
It's just, but
But
yeah,
then
but
at that point, you just have to laugh. I
yes,
would laugh because it's like, God damn. At that point, it's a lot of times this year it's been you could cry or laugh,
mm-hmm.
whether crying is metaphorically or not, and you're like, I might as well make a joke out of this and get something out of it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's funny. It's not even laugh to keep from crying. It's like laugh to stay sane
Mm-hmm.
because it's just been just a year of just. Are you feeling anxiety? Well, then why not? No, you have to. We all feel anxiety all the time now. All
Mm-hmm.
the time now. Where
Yeah.
someone even mentioned that, like, feel how you want to feel about Biden one way or the other. I definitely have a lot of problems with that guy, but like, he's not going to just call a fucking press conference or throw a rally every like 5 minutes
I
to
really hope that he adopts lamestream media, that term. I really want Joe Biden to say that.
and be chuckling like he made it up. And everybody's
Yeah.
like, people have said that a long time, Joe.
Yeah. That's the one thing I do want to carry over is the term lamestream media.
So quality. Yeah. Yeah. And I want him to stay lame. I don't want him to be exciting. Just like
No.
fucking put some good programs through, please. And
Yeah, and it's like there was a comic, I don't remember his name, but he's like, if the flight is boring, that's the best outcome.
that's really it. That's really it. Well, can I ask you, Brent, do people have, in general, and I ask everybody this, do
Mhm.
people ask you for your advice, friends or otherwise?
Yeah, probably friends, and my go-to in my life is my wife, and vice versa. We
Yeah.
tend to like, I don't think that's unique, but it's like I'll ask her opinion on stuff and vice versa, and then just close friends. But I've never done like ask me questions and I'll give you advice. So I'm excited to give you the wrong advice, listener.
Perfect. Yeah, because everybody knows, and they're calling in to not. It's not. We probably get at least one pretty serious one,
Hmm.
but it's usually like someone that's just like, hey, if you got anything, that's what I love about it. It's just like pressure is so off,
Hmm.
and occasionally we'll get one that's just fucking bananas, and that's great too. So
Well, and a lot of advice anyway, and staying up in general is, to find out that you're not alone.
yeah,
Like art in general is like, oh, other people feel this way. At least I don't feel as bad. I'm not the only one.
I'm remembering this, and it's still one of my favorite little side stories. Real quick, another comic who shall go unnamed,
Hmm.
but who has a pretty big ego, was back in the premium blend days, which
Okay.
is kind of even before, not before my time, but like that was the first show I was like, ooh, I'd love to get on there. When I
Hmm.
was starting to be like, oh, I'm an actual comedian, where
Hmm.
you reach that point in your life where you're like, yes, I can say this because I've done it enough. So Anyway, supposedly this guy was on, and it's a juiced up crowd. They've been warmed up. They want to laugh. It's not, if you got decent shit, it's not going to go badly. So
Yeah.
everyone on there's like 5-6 people. Everyone crushed except this one guy, and it's evidently after the show afterwards, he's backstage to everyone going, "Weird crowd, huh? Yeah, I thought they were. Didn't you?
Tight, right?
Didn't you think they were weird?" And everyone's like, maybe, man. No one wants to smash him and be like, "No, they were great.
Yeah.
You were so or whatever." Like there's that. Just the fact that he didn't, and we've all been there. But I'm always like, what did I? Oh man, I got to check. But instead, just projecting onto every other comedian.
Oh yeah. Well, and obviously the guy, either he is or isn't, but is not self-aware. Like that's the biggest thing in comedy, is just to be aware of who you are in your surroundings. And how could you not watch the whole show and you're the one thing that stood out? But sometimes I'm like, maybe it was them. You always want it to be not you.
Totally.
Sometimes it is you.
Sometimes it is, and then you just kind of laugh it off. I mean, I'll get to the first caller, but like one of my favorite things was my friend Mick Betancourt, who was like one of the first comics I started out with. He went up and just did terribly, and he walked by me laughing. It was like, "You see what I just ate?" And it's like, I mean, it was like immediately like, oh, he's just gonna laugh it off, and that's how you should be anyway. But
yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, so with that said, let's roll the first call, Renee.
Hey, Matt. Well, I love the show, by the way. First of all, I want to say that.
Thanks.
So I have this weird question. I don't know how to say this, but I no longer give money to the homeless. And I feel bad about that. Sometimes I feel like a jerk. But one night I was waiting to get on the train to go home, and I had this crazy homeless person come up to me and just start yelling in my face for no reason. I didn't know what was happening. I kind of put my hand up and said, "Hey, back up." And he punches me in the nose. And, and I ended up getting him to apologize for that. But I still felt really bad, And now when I see homeless people on the street, I don't even go near them. If they come up to me to even try and ask for money, I just shake my head and say no. And am I a jerk for that? All right. Well, anything you can do to help. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, wow. Jesus. That had more twists and turns than any story I've heard in recent memory. First off, dude, thank you for calling. I'm sorry if that happened to you. But Brent, I'll let you take first crack. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the twist was, because obviously you give somebody money, there's that possibility, and that's not all homeless people. It's like, oh, they're going to go buy drugs or booze or something. But it's also like, maybe I was going to buy drugs or, maybe.
That Greg Giraldo bit. They just spend money on drugs and alcohol. It's like, that was what I was going to spend it on.
Yeah.
How can I judge? Yeah.
Yeah. But I get, to get punched, obviously, there's something off with that guy, at least. And I was raised Catholic, so I went to Catholic schools, no longer Catholic, by the way. But one of the things I think I remember from schools, at least if you can't physically give anybody money, what I at least try to do when I walk past a homeless person is look, make eye contact, and acknowledge, because so many times I've done it where you just you're like, there's the guy right to the left, gonna keep looking. Right. And that guy's still a human being.
Right.
So at least you can acknowledge them and give them that dignity. But to not give homeless people money, I get it too.
Sure.
Because sometimes you don't have it. And then I don't know what you would do in that situation. I bought people food.
Yeah.
Just so you can, I cut out the middleman.
Yeah. No, I think first off, there's no shame in not giving a homeless person money. The caller basically came from the position of, I don't really do it anymore and I feel bad, but it's like, but you did it for a while. And it's like, you're right there. I think the best way to do it, to avoid the whole, is it drugs? Is it what, this, that, or the other? Definitely buy them a sandwich if you have time, or, ask first, obviously. But yeah, I don't want to say there's no right and wrong. It's just kind of, how much are you helping if you
Mhm.
just give someone a buck or two? I think it's one of those things that I sometimes do, but I will say not often. More often than not,
Mhm.
I'm like, sorry. But it's like I do. I'm like you. I make a point to kind of look at them and give them a nod, and
Mhm.
because that's the biggest thing about homelessness, is it dehumanizes you in the eyes of
Mhm.
everyone else. I do like the fact that you don't really hear that as much in comedy anymore, where someone describes something as like, "Oh, he was homeless dirty," or like, "You look homeless." Like it's all this thing
Mhm.
of, which I always just feel like, don't you understand how we're all a hair away from that?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
do you really think you're that far removed? And especially now, where I like that we're using the terms like the unhoused,
Mhm.
because homeless has such a rough connotation to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Short answer, caller. I don't think you should feel bad, and I'm really sorry you got assaulted. I mean, it's. I can't remember a time it's been worse in our country in terms of homelessness. It's just like where do you live, Brent? Where in the country?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a lot downtown, of course,
Right.
but then what you didn't see a few years ago is now you'll see certain intersections where you get the guys hanging out or whatever with the signs, and then you're like, oh, that's not good, because it's like you could watch it move neighborhoods.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say there was a big thing in Portland when I was even back when I was just like bartending there and stuff, where that's where I grew up. But there'd be really young, hate to say it, sound like a 80-year-old man in the 60s, but able-bodied young white people that were
Mm-hmm.
like, hey man, you got a book? And it's just like in
Hey,
that case,
brah.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, yeah, that's heroin.
Yeah.
Because you would be like, hey, I work at a restaurant. I can get you look on the menu, man. I have a comp tab. I can just get you a sandwich. I'd rather buy my own food. Like,
Yeah.
shut up, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just that thing. I did think of this today. I don't think I've talked about it on the show. When I was in Iowa City, driving to a gig, there were two homeless people. There's an old homeless black man and a younger homeless white guy, and he still wasn't that young, probably like 40s. But the white guy's yelling at the black guy. He's like, "Hey man, this is my corner," and I'm like, "Look, man, if the old black person shows up, I'm going to give my money to him. I think you should move.
Yeah.
Fair is fair. Not to judge one person's level of oppression and lack of resources, but I hate to say it, you're younger and you're white, so yeah, I think you should move."
Yeah. And it's
Obviously, I
also that
said none
weird
of
thing to
this.
call dibs on a public corner.
Well, and the old guy wasn't even really acknowledging him. He was just
Mhm.
looking at people passing and kind of.
He's probably been through that, if he's been homeless for a while,
Mhm.
where you just don't even, I don't know.
He's tuned
It's,
out. He's tuned out the disdain, so I'm sure he's tuned out the rival homeless man.
mm-hmm.
For sure. But yeah, thanks for calling, dude. I don't think you should be down on yourself. You sound like a good person. And again, I'm sorry you got punched. That's
Well, yeah.
awful.
And even the thought, you're like, should I feel bad? That's it. At least when you're questioning stuff,
Yeah.
you at least show some sign of morals. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
That's it. That's like, questioning is half the battle, to paraphrase G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
All right. So Renee, roll the second call.
Hey, Matt, this is more of a question, and I'm trying to figure out the math.
Cool.
The average guy can walk, about 4 miles an hour, and the average grocery store is like a mile away from my house. Why is it taking my dad 18 years to come back with cigarettes? I'm still trying to do the math. Anyways, thanks. Bye.
I appreciate a stupid joke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I will say this for anyone listening, just like, I don't think I have anything good or interesting to say to call. Just exhibit A. That guy just called to
Yeah.
make a really stupid joke, and I don't fault him at all. I don't give a shit.
And that's the kind of joke that it's not like a, hey, knock, knock, where it's coming.
Yes.
That one you could slip in on somebody. And then if you surprise me, then I'm laughing.
I wish, and he did, he got me, but I kind of wish, not to be like, let me punch up this joke, but I kind of wish it wasn't like, because it's always the dad left to get cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wish he would have switched it up and been like, you know, when my mom is coming back with her new boyfriend, or you know, or like, you know, when my girlfriend is gonna, you know, stop exploring life in the Caribbean and fly home to me, like, or whatever, you know, something. There, the list could go. You and I could sit and make a list of things. An idiot, you know, would miss in terms of.
I used to, and I still will try this bit, and it's just one line. But I was my dad wasn't the greatest person, so my brother and I would always joke like, "When are you going to start smoking? Like, go away."
Right on. Yeah, it's like we wish you would. I mean, Tom Papa had this. He did a pilot, and I auditioned for it, and I remember reading the script and being like, "This is such a great idea." But it was about a longtime road comic who decides to take more time off from the road and be with his family, and his family's like not about it. They're like, "Why? Our lives are great this way. We don't see you that often. When we do, you bring us shit. Why? Why do you need to be home? You don't have it. Your job is out there. What do you know?" I was like, "That's, you know, it didn't go to series or anything, but I was just like, oh, that'd be so funny."
Well, even this pandemic, you know, my wife and I got married last October.
Oh,
So
wow.
at the time of this recording, it's, you know, November, but we've been together for, you know, 6 or 7 years already. So, but it was weird because we talked about our relationship is based on me going.
Yeah.
And it, you know, we're both the type of people that enjoy the alone time. So
Yes.
even cooped up together for months on end, we were at least aware enough to go, okay, I want to go in that room,
Right.
and you can go in here, and that way we won't murder each other or fight, or, you know.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, my wife travels a lot, or traveled, and not as much as me, but we would just we were kind of like two ships in the night. When we were back in town at the same time, it was like, oh, this is great. But now it's, thankfully, the quarantine has not been terrible on us. But it was like there was a time when I was like, I hope this doesn't fuck everything up, you know?
Yeah, well, then you hear all the statistics of, you know, oh, so many people, but who knew how close they were to that anyway? This was the thing that just pushed them.
Oh yeah.
And the last thing you want is two unhappy people to be unhappy together, you know?
Yeah, I got a huge kick out of all the stories of men who wouldn't help around the house. Like these women who are writing into like Dear Abby and stuff, and were exasperated because these guys are just like, well, but no. And it's like, but you're not working, you know, clean out the garage, or, you know, mop the floor, do dishes. Like, and they're just like, like you know, they were just like, I've got to pick this lock somehow. I've got to find, there's got to be some secret door I can go through and not do the fucking housework that I've been making my wife do for all this time. And I just hearing those stories just made me laugh, where it's just like his wife is going to leave him, so he just has to, and he's just going to bitch like a spanked child.
Yeah, I can't bear to take 20 minutes out of my day and vacuum and fold the towels.
Yeah, it's just, but I don't wanna.
Yeah, well, it's because you're a grown bitch.
Yeah.
And you're a baby.
You're a baby.
Just do something.
Yes. Oh, well, thanks for the dumb joke, caller. All right.
Yeah.
One more call. Let's roll it, Renee.
Hey, Matt. Russ here. Big fan. Just wanted to ask about keeping some weight off this year. I know that you've lost a lot of weight and you look great, and I actually was able to lose some weight during the quarantine after the first month of just eating and drinking way too much every day and staying inside. But just wondering what if you have any advice for keeping things to a dull roar over the holidays with the stress and, you know, now not traveling to see parents and family, and just kind of more excuses to eat and drink way too much. And just curious how to not become a fat bastard again for the rest of my life. So thank you, and take care.
Thanks, Ruff.
And I'm going to let you I want to lay out for this whole question, because if you're watching the video version, you know why. Because I'm fat.
But you don't look terrible. You're not someone it's like, oh yeah, this person's very unhealthy. You don't strike me as a really stridently unhealthy person, though.
I try not to be. I've had it in my act. I'm like, as long as I can remain that redheaded guy and not that fat guy, then I can, as long as I'm known for the red hair and not the fat.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I lost some weight, but only because I just started exercising. That's kind of what my thing was, and then it kind of shrinks your stomach down a little bit, and you just don't eat as much. I still eat crap. Don't get it twisted, and I definitely. To the caller, like I definitely gained weight over the quarantine. It's not as visible and it's starting to go down a little bit, but my wife and I drove across the country and it's just like, it's not like I was exercising. I was loading a bassinet in and out of a car, but that was it, and carrying a baby around. But like, I think it just comes down to just like to my quick answer that came to mind for the caller is just like, just try to exercise at least every other day. And when I say exercise, watch a YouTube video and do like a boot camp class or a dance class or something that makes you sweat and builds up a little bit of muscle. So you have metabolism to fight the inevitable, heavy food and the alcohol you're going to consume. It's just like, that's the only way. Because I feel like if you just, even as we're cooped up, just all you do is go, I'm just counting calories, you're going to snap. Because you're not.
Yeah. You're just that's at a certain point. And to your point, you find some exercise, I don't know why I'm giving this advice, but that you enjoy. Like I got a bike, a new bike, like one that actually fits my body, not the one from when I was a teenager. And then I was like, oh, this is fun. And it doesn't feel like exercise,
Yeah.
Or I had these quarantine walks where you're like, okay, now I can listen to my shows, which are podcasts,
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Just get the blood pumping and do something. Yeah, that's even better advice. Don't do something you don't like because you won't stick with it. You need to have something that, I like stuff you can kind of zone out to and lose yourself with, and be like, oh, we're done. Great.
Yep. Oh, the episode's over and I'm headed back home already.
We did when we were living in Massachusetts for a month with the in-laws, with her in-law, my in-laws, her parents, and we did a couple Pilates classes. And I realized why I fucking hate those classes is because you can't lose yourself. You're in the moment every second of every minute going, wow, this really sucks. This is great for my musculature and my limberness, but I hate this. I hate this so much. So it was almost like that old saying of like, there's a man walking and he's beating himself with a stick, and a woman stops him and says, why are you beating yourself with a stick? And he goes, it feels so good when I stop. It's almost like that. Because like when you're done with it, it's just like, thank God that's over, like that. So I wouldn't be like, oh, try that. Like it works, but you won't, you won't stick with it. So
I to the contrast though, I will say that I do DDP yoga, not often, not as much as I should. But I do.
Page for those of you who aren't wrestling fans.
Former wrestler,
sure.
And it's not something I like to do all the time, which is what you're saying. But also, I do enjoy that the workout. It's like I know this is 30 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not. Because I don't know how long. I'm sure your classes were probably an hour that you were doing, which I was like, I would be like, oh.
Sometimes just 30.
Okay, even 30. But it's also one where like I know this is done in 30 minutes because before I would go to the gym, and that's up to me. Yeah. And it's like I got to put in this hour, and it's like no, you don't have to. You just do whatever you want. But at least when I know 30 is done, I'm done.
Yeah, and the great thing about those 30-minute ones is they can make it as hard as an hour would be. You get done in less time, So yeah. So hope that helps, caller. Appreciate it. So Brent, before I let you go, is there anything you want to plug right now?
I do a podcast with I don't know if you know Ryan Niemiller.
Yeah, totally.
He got third on America's Got Talent, and another guy named Johnny LaQuasto, who before he was furloughed was on WWE as an announcer.
Yep.
And he's still heavily involved in wrestling. So we do a podcast called The Cafeteria. It's out every Friday, but I don't know when this will come out, but this week's episode's already out. But yeah, there's a whole catalog and they're evergreen episodes, so it's not time sensitive.
Oh, that's what everybody needs right now too, which is perfect. So, dude, it was a great time, man. Thanks for coming on the show, and I hope to see you out and about when things get a little more normal.
Agreed. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
Of course. Thanks for listening to This Might Help with Matt Braunger. You need advice or want to ask me a question or whatever, just leave me a message. 323-763-0228. No ask for advice too stupid. Once again, 323-763-0228. Thanks. This Might Help with Matt Braunger was created and hosted by me, Matt Braunger. Produced by Outer Circle Media. Executive producers Matt Kleinschmidt and Robert Kelly for the Laugh Button Podcasts.